Hello, good evening. Israel continues to reject Palestinian statehood while vowing to dismantle Hamas and curb settler violence. Meanwhile, Sudan faces renewed clashes and calls grow to classify the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist group amid escalating regional instability. They're our topics tonight. Welcome to special coverage here on Q News, where we tackle the latest developments around the world.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. There was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful, and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Hamas will be disarmed in all areas under its control, whether by peaceful or forceful means. He reiterated that Israel's stance against establishing a Palestinian state remains unchanged. Netanyahu also stated that his government will take decisive action against settlers who commit acts of violence in the West Bank, emphasizing the administration's commitment to security and law enforcement across all contested areas. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has reiterated Israel's absolute rejection of a Palestinian state as the UN Security Council prepares to vote on a US-backed resolution endorsing a path to Palestinian statehood. Katz declared that Israel's stance is firm, that there will be no Palestinian state, adding that Gaza will be fully demilitarized and Hamas dismantled. He said that the Israeli occupation army will remain positioned at Jabal el-Sheikh and within the security zone. His remarks came one day before the Security Council votes on a U.S. proposal supporting President Trump's Gaza peace plan, which includes an international stabilization force. Israel media has reported that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is now viewed as the main obstacle to advancing the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire outlined in President Trump's proposal. According to the analysis, the Arab partners of the US believe Netanyahu is preventing any movement towards the plan, particularly steps that could lead to a Palestinian state. Israeli media says senior Israeli political officials insist on keeping the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing closed, despite the agreement's requirement that it reopen in the first phase. Hamas has announced it has received from Israel a list of 1,468 Palestinian detainees from Gaza, emphasizing that Israel bears full responsibility for the lives of all detainees. The movement added that Israel continues to forcibly conceal additional detainees whose identities remain undisclosed. Hamas called on mediators to exert pressure on Israel to reveal the full number of detainees and ensure transparency regarding their conditions, stressing the urgent need for accountability and protection of all Palestinian detainees held in Israeli custody. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 69,400 and over 170,700 were wounded. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that hospitals in the Strip have received 17 dead and 3 others injured in the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization said that 900 patients in Gaza have lost their lives due to delays in medical evacuation. We're now joined from Jenin by the writer and political analyst, Major General Samir Abahara. And thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. So, in your view, when could the second phase of the Gaza agreement begin? I believe you didn't quite hear that question, Major General. I'll ask it again. When do you think the second phase of the Gaza agreement could begin? Okay, I believe we're having a few technical issues, so I'll ask the question again. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me this time. When do you think the second phase of the Gaza agreement could begin? Unfortunately, I think we're having a few issues reaching Major General Samir Abahara, so we're just going to move on to a few other stories today. Egypt has dispatched its 73rd aid convoy under the Zad al-Azza provision of honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative from Rafah to Gaza via Kerem Abu Salem border crossing. The convoy delivers urgent winter and food supplies to Gaza, carrying approximately 9,300 tons of aid, including 5,500 tons of food baskets and flour, 2,400 tons of medical and relief supplies, and 1,400 tons of fuel. The convoy also responded to recent heavy rains by providing over 106,000 blankets, 1,350 mattresses, 40,000 winter garments, and 4,450 tents. Since its July 27th launch, the initiative has coordinated the delivery of more than 500,000 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza, facilitated by 35,000 volunteers and continuous operations at the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati has emphasized the urgent need for an international stabilization force in Gaza to monitor the ceasefire, facilitate humanitarian aid, and pave the way for reconstruction, ultimately supporting the establishment of a Palestinian state along the June 4, 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Speaking in Ankara, he highlighted U.S. engagement as crucial in overcoming past negotiation obstacles and stressed implementing all phases of the Sharm el-Sheikh peace plan, including a temporary Palestinian committee for Gaza. Abdel Ati also stressed Egypt's mediation in Palestinian reconciliation, Sudan's humanitarian crisis in al-Fasher, Libya's institutional unification, and deepening Egyptian-Turkish bilateral cooperation for regional stability.
United States in order to push for consolidating the ceasefire and make it on hold, because this is very important.
And after a few technical horrors just a few moments ago, we now have Major General Samir Abahara on the phone from Jenin. Thank you very much for joining us here. I'd like to ask you when you think the second phase of the Gaza agreement could begin.
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching. The Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, according to the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, second phase was supposed to start in a week, but we have seen lots of obstacles that have stalled this, and even the White House said that that they are concerned that maybe the agreement will face some challenges to be implemented. They were worried about Hamas refusing to give up their arms, and then also the war hasn't stopped. In Gaza, we've seen violations from the Israeli side, lots of violations, and then they're talking about the peacekeeping forces, forming them. What duties will these forces have? What are their duties, the rights, and so on? And so, according to all this, we had some kind of a gap in the implementation process, and then we needed some new mechanism to start the second phase. And as it appears here, according to the USA has proposed their project to the Security Council so that they start forming destabilization forces, and so did Russia. And but yeah, there are some disputes between the USA and Russia over these over the fine print and these details. Russia wants to grant the Palestinians their right to self-determination, and they want to see what these forces can do and what their duties are, what can they decide. And then the USA also has added to their project the right to self-determination for the Palestinians, and this actually caused some kind of disputes in Israel, saying that this is the start of having a Palestinian statehood, and of course this will have its consequences on the forces matter and what are their role. Israel is asking the forces to disarm Hamas, and tomorrow they will have a vote on this. But I think that if the USA and Russia aren't on the same page, then things won't be going so smoothly. And if the USA and Russia want to keep implementing the agreement, then they need to be on the same page, or things will go south. We cannot have the two sides conflicting, and the region will stay under the effect of the war, and the agreement will be stalled further, and will also maybe will wait for weeks or even months to implement phase 2. And so this doesn't benefit any side or anyone in the region. As I said, things need to end. We need an actual ceasefire. Israel needs to withdraw, and then we need to start reconstruction and start healing for Gaza, and to have the Palestinians go back to their homes safely.
And what's your view on Netanyahu's consistent refusal to establish a Palestinian state?
Netanyahu now he has refused a Palestinian statehood, and he is refusing it. He's absolutely refusing it. As we know, the far right ministers, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, said that they will not be officials in a country that accepts a Palestinian statehood. And then, even Netanyahu, as we see, he doesn't want a Palestinian statehood, and so he asked the USA to remove the point of a right to self-determination from the project that the USA will be giving to the Security Council. But and this gave Netanyahu space to do whatever he wants. This gave him freedom, and if we remove this point, then we need the Palestinians and the Israelis to go back to the negotiation table. But here actually having negotiations between Palestine and Israel will be pointless, because Palestine has been asking Israel for more than 20 years to stop this and to have a Palestinian statehood, and Israel hasn't really responded. And we've seen the countries that have recognized a Palestinian statehood. We saw the United Kingdom and Russia, for example, signing and agreeing to an affidavit to establish a Palestinian statehood, and this was negotiated, but then Israel refused recognizing a Palestinian statehood. And so this is the scenario right now, and it will happen again if there are negotiations between Palestine and Israel. Things will stay just as is, as they were before. the same situation that was there 20 years ago. We can't wait. We need some ruling about establishing a Palestinian statehood from the Security Council and from the United Nations, and this leads us to something else. And yeah, the USA, President Trump has said lots of times that he wants stability and peace in the Middle East, and we need to look into the reasons there is a war. There is a war in Gaza and a war in the region, like in Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, Iran. And what are the reasons that led to these wars? The reason is very clear here, and the right of Palestinians and having a Palestinian statehood will be crucial to do this, and it will be crucial for stability in the region. We need a two-state solution, and after this I think that we will have peace and stability in the region, especially that Israel needs the Middle East actually. Yeah, they cannot have any relationships with any of the Middle East countries unless we have a two-state solution and we establish a Palestinian statehood. And actually what they're doing will lead to the destruction of Israel, and then this leads us to another thing. Israel is having settlements now in the West Bank. Things are escalating fast, and things could go even worse in the West Bank, because the settlers have the green light now from Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and they are violating the agreement. They are attacking the civilians, destroying buildings and facilities, and so this could lead to further escalated tensions. And then also the military leadership in Israel, Netanyahu has said that he will be taking over the West Bank and that things will get worse, and maybe we will have another demonstration in the West Bank because of all the military operations there, like what happened in the Gaza Strip. And we've seen this actually happen before, and then we had the Madrid meeting and the peace agreement. And so going back to war, it doesn't benefit anyone. We don't need wars, we need negotiations and recognizing a Palestinian statehood, and this may lead to stability in the Middle East. Otherwise, I don't think that any negotiations will get us nowhere.
Now, you mentioned President Trump there in your response. Do you think a major disagreement could arise between Netanyahu and Trump because of Netanyahu's rejection of all U.S. plans regarding Gaza's administration?
As it seems, there is some kind of disputes between Netanyahu and President Trump, but as it seems that the USA is trying to give Netanyahu some what he wants, and but from the Saudi Arabia side, and with Prince Salman's visit to the USA in the upcoming days, we will see. We can't have any agreements unless they normalize the relations, but this actually has to do with this has to do with the USA's strategic relationships with Saudi Arabia, and actually Saudi Arabia won't be moving forward with this unless Israel stops, because they really care about the Palestinian cause, and they really care about the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, and to establish a Palestinian statehood, or at least to have USA's word to establish a Palestinian statehood, and otherwise things will stay unstable in the region.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Major General Samir Abahara joining us from Jenin. Thank you very much, writer and political analyst. Much appreciated. Now, let's get the latest developments from Sudan. Media reports stated that the Sudanese army repelled an attack by the Rapid Support Forces on the 22nd Division headquarters in Abu Nusa, West Kordofan state. The reports added that the Sudanese army inflicted heavy losses in personnel and military equipment on the RSF during their attempt to attack the 22nd Division headquarters in Abu Nusa. U.S. President's envoy to Africa, Musad Boulos, urged the warring parties in Sudan to accept a 3-month humanitarian ceasefire, describing the current situation in Sudan as the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Boulos described the conflict in Sudan as one of the worst humanitarian crises globally, highlighting the tragic events that occurred in the El Fasher region over the past few weeks.
Recent statistics by the UN that were released by the UNICEF talk about 522,000 children that have died since
the final statement of the 9th summit of the heads of state of the Great Lakes region called on the UN Security Council to condemn the Rapid Support Forces militia in Sudan in light of its ongoing crimes against the Sudanese people. Sudanese Deputy Foreign Minister Ambassador Muawiyah Osman Khalid stated that the 9th summit approved the recommendations presented by the organization's Ministerial Council, as well as the recommendations of the defense ministers and security agencies, all of which called for classifying the RSF as a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati discussed developments in Sudan and ceasefire efforts with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Minister Abdel Ati emphasized the importance of an immediate ceasefire as a precursor to launching a sustainable political process that ensures the unity of the Sudanese state and its institutions. Sudan faces a catastrophic war and unprecedented humanitarian crisis, with global pressure rising after El Fasher atrocities, and the world must decide whether to act or witness collapse.
Sudan is facing one of the worst crises in the world today. The country is trapped between a brutal war and a fast-moving humanitarian disaster. And many are asking whether international action can still make a difference. The conflict began in April 2023 when fighting broke out between the Sudanese army led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the Rapid Support Forces commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. What started as a powerful struggle has turned into a nationwide catastrophe. More than 150,000 people have been killed, and about 12 million have been forced from their homes. The UN says Sudan is now the world's largest humanitarian crisis. The capture of El Fasher by the RSF marked a devastating turning point. Reports of mass killings and systematic attacks against civilians have intensified global alarm. In response, the UN Human Rights Council has unanimously agreed to launch a new independent investigation into the atrocities reported in El Fasher. It's a rare moment of global unity and a sign that the world is finally recognizing the scale of the crisis. But the big question remains, will these efforts be enough to stop the war? Peace still seems far away, and millions in Sudan cannot afford to wait much longer. Sudan now stands at a critical crossroads between deeper conflict and a chance for peace. The world's next steps may decide which path it takes.
And we're now joined from Cairo by the Sudan political analyst Taha El-Muatsim. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. How do you view the ongoing battles across multiple fronts in Kordofan?
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching. The military escalations and the conflict are is at its peak now in Sudan, especially in Kordofan, and this is especially after the capturing of Al-Fashir that has had the civilians devastated because of all the uh, mass violations. The Sudanese army could free two cities in northern Kordofan over the past 2 days, but let me say that the military escalation, the effect of this escalation on the civilians, it is very devastating for them.
Yes, indeed, of course. And you will have heard me talking just a little while ago about the 9th Great Lakes Summit's recommendation to classify the RSF as a terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Yeah, this statement was the statement of the 9th summit of the head of state of the Great Lakes, and there was a large delegation from Sudan that took part in this summit, and they condemned the rapid support forces. And also on Friday, the day before yesterday, we had a meeting where the RSF were condemned and then called for a committee, a fact-checking committee, and so all the nations are actually doing their part, but actually the neighboring countries need to live up to their role more.
And what is the situation in El Fasher now? How many people are trapped inside the city?
It is one of the worst humanitarian situations, and here I want to quote what the United Nations has said when they said that what's happening in Sudan is the worst humanitarian crisis. It's been around a year, and there were numbers according to the organization that there were thousands displaced. But in a statement of the U.S. Prime Minister, he has said that the number of people that left was less than expected, and then the statement concluded. And I want to say, where are the rest? The media isn't doing Al-Fashir justice. The media and the newspapers, news agencies, they can't really show what's really happening in Al-Fashir. Are they detained? Were they killed? The people in Al-Fashir have basically disappeared, and even even the correspondents in Al-Fashir have disappeared. We have around 7 press staff who were who have disappeared, and then there were also some who were detained, like Muammar Ibrahim and the correspondent. And so not showing what's really happening makes everyone concerned about what's happening in Al-Fashir.
And can the international community take some kind of action against the RSF in Sudan?
Yeah, there is something very good that Egypt, Saudi Arabia, USA, and United Emirates, they have proposed a roadmap on the 12th of September. And it had a number of steps, keeping the unity and sovereignty of Sudan. Number 2, having a humanitarian truce for 90 days to open the humanitarian corridors for the civilians. Number 3, stop any foreign support or funding to the Sudanese side. And here they mean any countries that support the RSF. And they also talked about a roadmap to stop the war altogether. And so this initiative here is actually very much welcomed by the Sudanese people, and there are huge measures by the foreign Egyptian foreign minister Badr Abdulati in lots of calls with his Saudi Arabia and USA and American counterpart.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us tonight. Taher El Muazzam, who is a Sudan political analyst, joining us from Cairo. Thank you very much. And that's all from our special coverage here tonight. And don't forget, you can always find out more news whenever you need it at Qnews EGY is our handle on our social media platforms. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Qnews.